Are we live? We're live. So the first advice would be get fixed assets and implement fixed assets, right? You would want to do that anyway, just to work with Angie, right? I mean, that's what I would want to do. So, all right, next automation play. So as Antonio mentioned, SWK, and as Mark mentioned this morning, SWK is very committed to meet with customers. And not over the phone, but face-to-face, on-site. And it's truly been a pleasure to, over the last year plus, for me to get out on the road and meet with many customers face-to-face, sit down for, sometimes it's been an hour, sometimes they wouldn't let me leave. And it was, 3 or 4 hours. It was so much fun too, by the way. But just to sit down and understand really what you're doing, what can be done differently possibly or better. Maybe you don't quite understand Sage 100C yet and you really want to dive down on that roadmap and understand what that means. You've seen and heard a lot of things today. We have a lot of great ISVs, industry specific vendors, that have solutions very specific. You've seen the sales tax and other things and AP automation and inventory and other things I know you've seen throughout the day. So if you have questions about those things, love to sit down and chat with you about those, as well as other things like growth, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. So everything about STAT is really strategic. So I'm not really there to dissect a business operation, a detailed AP process. I have done that before, honestly, but that's not the intent of what we're trying to do. So here's a quote for the day. Many of you that know me know that I love to boat. And as I get on in years, I know that one day I may end up on a contraption like this, and I think I would be okay with that, right? So the quote for the day is, "Only a mediocre person is always at his best." So you have to think about that for a second. All right. So the typical agenda, and I wanted to bring up an agenda for just a typical strategic meeting, and that. It's pretty basic with just a few categories. I won't go through and read all those, but it is focused on a couple of different things. What we've learned is many of our customers really don't know much about SWK. And a lot of that is because we've done so many acquisitions over the last 10 years and brought in, like my company in Phoenix, we've grown so fast that we haven't really communicated well everything that we do at SWK. How many of you knew that we have a large managed services, network services division? Actually, pretty significant division, ranked like in the top 50 in the world. And the types of services that we can provide and offer there are pretty extensive. And so we like to spend a little bit of time introducing SWK as well. And we go through lots of business automation options that I know you've heard about today. We talk about the cloud a little bit. You've probably heard public cloud, multi-tenant cloud, single-tenant cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, puffy cloud, whatever it is, right? And it gets a little bit confusing about what cloud really is or isn't and what makes sense for my company. What can I leverage that makes sense in the cloud? So very happy to have a candid discussion with you about that as well, and so on. So I'll just go ahead and move on. I don't need to go through any of that. I thought I deleted that slide, but I have been a CPA and an information systems auditor for many years, and have a background in both accounting and technology. So that blend has really helped to understand business issues, but also how to apply technology to those issues. How many of you, I'm sure you've heard of Stephen Covey. What I'd like to do is just a real quick overview of Stephen Covey's time management matrix. Anybody familiar with this by raise of hand? Anybody seen this? It's pretty old, right? It's been around for a long time. I was introduced to this, 25 years ago, and I still remember it. So I want to just briefly share these 4 quadrants of time management. So you notice it's urgent, not urgent across the top, important and not important, down the side, 4 quadrants. So quadrant one, it's urgent and important. We face this every day. This is what we face. And we spend a lot of time in quad 1, right? I mean, we have to. It's right in front of us, and we just spend, that's where we spend most of our time. Well, quad 2, it's not urgent, but it's important. So we have a tendency to not spend as much time in quadrant 2. Business planning, strategic meetings, because we're so inundated, with quad 1. Quad 3, it's urgent but not important. So what you could probably do with those, right? Poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. That's where that quote fits. And then of course quad 4, if any of us spend any time, we shouldn't be spending time in quad 4. If it's not important, it's not urgent. Quick anecdotal story. I call this one thing, the one thing. So your significant other gives you a call on the way home from work, says, hey, can you stop and pick up some milk on your way home from work, right? And I know I might stereotype us guys a little bit on this, and I apologize for that, but I think everybody will understand, right? So we get to our favorite store on the way home. We have habits. We know which aisles we like to walk down and what's kind of on what aisle, right? Well, we have milk on the brain. Well, we know that if we have milk, you can't have milk without double stuffed Oreo cookies, right? I mean, you just can't do that, right? And so you're kind of navigating around the store, and you're out of your favorite cereal. And the only reason I have Count Chocula up here is because Andy, and Andy's not even in here. Yeah, we'll have to make sure he knows that we gave him, that's his favorite cereal. Hey, we're getting milk, right? So then we find some other things. We're walking around. We find a few other things. Of course, you're in the dairy section. Might as well pick up a little ice cream, right? Those Krispy Kreme displays are always just in that spot right where we're walking in the grocery store. So we grab a box of Krispy Kremes. Gotta pick up some of your favorite soda, on the way, right? So you're all loaded up. You get home. You got a couple big bags worth of groceries with everything in those bags except the milk. So we not only forgot the one thing, we forgot the only thing that was on our list. So I love that story, and the reason I bring that up is the one thing that I want as a takeaway today. The one thing is to focus on spending time in quadrant 2. Intentionally spend time, calendar time, to think strategically, to meet with your colleagues, and talk about what is needed in my company. What can we do differently or better? So meeting in that non-urgent but important time quadrant is the one thing that I'd like to stress today. And that would go along with our theme of being transformational in our businesses into #enable success. Okay. We talked a little bit about SWK this morning. I removed some things that I had in there that I typically do if I'm on site with you. But I wanted to at least bring up another quick fact about SWK, that we're a public company. Did everybody know that we're a public company? I'm not sure how well we've communicated that. So SWK is owned by Silver Sun Technologies, which is actually traded on NASDAQ. Kind of an interesting thing that we are trying to promote more about who we are, because we want you to feel good about doing business with us, and we want you to feel comfortable with that. You know about a lot of the things that we do, but we will kind of go through more of those things in detail in a strategic meeting. And then I did talk about our managed services, network services division, and I won't dwell on that, but we want to make sure we introduce all the things that SWK can do at the same time that we learn more about your company. I have been totally surprised. I will tell you time and time again, the things that I've learned at companies that I had no idea. I had no idea that a company was doing this, or that they just had gone international, or they bought something else, or. And those discussions they're intended to bring those things out. Okay. So growth can be painful. Most of you are growing. Since the last little while, the economy has picked up. We all know that, and every company I've talked to has been just growing. Well, growth is painful. Some of you are growing rapidly, and that's almost impossible to deal with. When you grow rapidly, what it does is it exposes all of your inefficiencies. You know, we all love Excel. We all love to do things on a spreadsheet. And when we get so busy or grow so fast, those manual processes get exposed as weaknesses. That's just what happens. Then that promotes or that creates a business automation opportunity. So what would work? What would help solve that? So that's what we're talking about being strategic. So your next automation play, some of the areas to consider, and again, I won't dwell in detail on these, but again, these are common areas that we talk about. E-commerce, what are you doing over the web? How are you doing business? A lot of distribution companies are not only shipping to wholesalers, if you will, but they're also shipping direct to end consumers, and they're also allowing Amazon to ship direct to their consumers. So how do you deal with that? Well, you know, that's a current issue. Okay, so I'll just keep going. Document management, you heard some about that today. That means a lot of different things and a lot of different levels. With automation opportunities, as you've also heard today as well. So I'll just keep moving on. So automation and integration in many, many areas are solved with a lot of the companies that are here today that have spent their time showcasing their solutions. And we appreciate them and what they do for us. Okay, other areas to consider. I had to put EDI in there, or Gary would have not been happy with me. So we had to put EDI up there. But inventory management, I know Russ at Sage Inventory Advisor spent some time with us yesterday. And if you have inventory, and if you don't know what Sage Inventory Advisor is, we need to talk about that. Okay, that's another great opportunity. And you've seen many of the others, sales tax, credit card, and so on. Dashboards and financial reporting. Just a minute on this. I sat at a table this morning and heard a great story. And I forgot your name. What's your name again? Sean, and what company? Sean has spent some time in trying to automate a process and getting financial information out of Sage into a format that was presentable to the owners. We'll just say it's and he created a way to do that. Granted, it's with Excel, and I love Excel, by the way. I know we can overuse it and abuse it. But the process was very simple, and he solved a way to turn a very onerous process into something that was very quick and effective. Well, there are tools out there that help us do that. How many have heard of Power BI? Some of you see, now we're finally getting some visibility to that. Well, some of our consultants have used Power BI with your Sage 100 information and generated some pretty incredible reports and dashboards. The great thing about Power BI is you already own it. It's part of Office 365. So you already have a license for Power BI. So if you're interested in learning a basic little dashboarding reporting tool, you probably already have it. Okay? So these strategic meetings are customer-centric. Mark Meller has invested in this effort to make sure that we pay more attention to our customers. And interestingly enough, as the cloud evolved, it seemed like we became more remote, right? Everything, I don't want to pay for the travel costs. I want to do everything remote. And we became a lot more impersonal over the years. Well, SWK is committed to these on-site customer meetings at no charge to you. And we do that because we know there's value, not only for you, but for us. So please consider that. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but that is a value that we offer. Okay, let me just keep moving along here. Also wanted to recommend that you invest in some leadership training. Jennifer this morning made a comment about leadership, about how everybody here, we may not consider ourselves to be leaders, but we really are, and we have leadership opportunities all the time, whether it's a coworker or wherever else in life. So leadership training has really kind of come back on the radar. We do quite a bit of it at SWK, and it's been very valuable. So please consider some leadership training within your organization. Cloud strategies and options, I'll just take a moment on this. I got a little carried away with the animation. I apologize for that. Kind of how that worked out. But we do want to leverage the cloud. We want to know where it makes sense. How does it help us? And we don't want to just buy technology for the sake of technology, but there are many areas of connected and cloud services that are very effective and actually save time and money. Cybersecurity. I don't know how many of you still, I shouldn't say still, that's being judgmental. How many of you have on-site networks and you're maintaining servers? I know we do that. So it's something that we continue to do because we can. Well, as it turns out, we're not nearly as secure doing that than if we were to somehow have that outsourced. I'll just, in general, outsource to the cloud. We'll put it that way. So cybersecurity has become a huge deal. Vulnerability scans and testing has become a big thing. We want you to know that that's part of the services that we provide at SWK. We can actually look at your system and provide a scan and tell you what your threats are, as an example. We also have a very scary new tool that we can take your email address, it's a little scary, throw it out into the dark web, and we can give you a report of how compromised all your passwords are. It's a little scary. But those are the kind of tools that are out there for that. So that'd be the thing to give your boss's email address, right? And then they run that through. Okay, another comment on STAT, our Strategic Technology Advisor Team. We just call it STAT, kind of a play on words. Again, it's a strategic focus. So when we come on site to meet with you, we actually have a structured, what we call structured dialogue. We have a structured approach, but then it's I don't want to say it's free form, but we kind of say, okay, what else can we talk about? Because we do have a list of things that we want to make sure we cover, but we want it to be more you educating us and then collaborate on what makes sense, okay? As Antonio likes to say, so what's next? There is a link on our website. If you would like a strategic meeting, there's a link, or you can just email me and we'll just schedule it. I typically work very closely with your CAM though. I know some of you have different CAMs. Ashley Wilson is here in Southern California. You probably know Ashley, those of you who are in this geography. And pretty much all the CAM. If you're not sure who your CAM is, ask and we'll let you know, but I usually work through your account manager as well. So we talked about it being on site. Okay, I've kind of already mentioned some of these things as well. We also offer another engagement that is a fee-based engagement, but it's a relatively inexpensive engagement. It's something like this. Rather than, and we do detailed business process reviews. We have consultants that are just really good at that. They map out every detailed step in a process, flow chart it out, identify where the weaknesses are in a process. Well, think about functionality gaps for your company. What areas of functionality don't we have that are preventing us from reaching our goals? We call it a business direction gap analysis. So it's a very simple engagement, and I can explain that in more detail. We've done a couple of these now. They're very effective, if it makes sense. I won't go into any more customers, but it's been, like I said, it's been very, very enlightening to meet with customers. Most of the time, I would say that the meeting ends up resulting in getting more out of what you already have. That's probably 80% of the result is getting more out of what you already own. And that's a great outcome. So to wrap up, the one thing, what's the one thing? Quad 2, right? Spend time in that strategic quadrant and in business planning and strategizing to figure out what our automation steps are going to be. Okay, that's it. I appreciate your time and attention today, and please let me know if you'd like more. Okay, thank you.